Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today's video was actually requested by a subscriber. So we are going to be talking about add delete questions for the SAT writing and language section. So basically we're going to be talking about when you should add a sentence that the SAT is prompting you to add, when you shouldn't add it, when you should delete it, all of the conditions and common circumstances that would make you either want to add it or delete it. And I do just want to say before we jump into the video, our SAT crash course is actually coming up this Thursday, May 5th. So if you are looking for more SAT content for us for all four sections, both the math and the English, so the English, the reading, and the writing and language, and both of the math sections, that's this Thursday evening from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The registration link, I'll drop that in the description below, as well as our book link and all of that fun jazz. So without further ado, guys, let's jump into today's video. I do initially want to stress the significance of these questions. So on a given test, I would say a good 3 to 5 of the 44 questions on a writing and language section will be these add, delete type of questions. So knowing how to work with them, obviously, if you go from getting 0 of them right to getting 3 or 5 of them right, obviously that's going to significantly improve your score, given how on the writing and language section, typically you get, another question right that adds another 10 points to your score in most cases for the curve. Alrighty, so first we're going to talk about a really, really common case in which you absolutely want to either add the sentence if they're giving you the option to add it, or keep the sentence if they're giving you, the option to delete it or keep it. So let's begin with practice test 1 here, question number 6. So the first 3 examples that we're going to look at, this is where it's absolutely necessary to keep that sentence because it's either serving as a transitional sentence from the preceding paragraph to the new paragraph, or it's going to introduce the content in the following paragraph. So let's look at number 6. So the writer is considering deleting the underlined sentence. Should the writer go ahead and do this? So it says, though these conservation methods can be costly and time-consuming, they are well worth the effort. Because if we look in the previous paragraph, we're talking about all of the problems that have to do with disposing of the whey that's produced from Greek yogurt, the acid whey. And we're talking about how it can pollute waterways and all of the problems that come with generating whey when you produce Greek yogurt. So the next paragraph after that is talking about how Greek yogurt is healthy, it's low in sugar and carbs, it has a lot of protein, and it helps people stay full. So if we did not include this sentence right here, it would make no sense how we go from talking about all of these negative points in the first paragraph to all of these positive points in the second paragraph right here. So here this sentence is needed to function as a transitional sentence between the negative in the previous and the positive in the new paragraph. So we definitely do not want to delete it. So we're going to say A and B are out. We should not go ahead with deleting it. C says we should not delete it because it continues to explain how acid whey can be disposed of. We're not talking about how it can be disposed of. We're done with that, so it can't be C. It's got to be choice D, no, because it sets up the argument for the benefits of Greek yogurt. It's explaining, it's annoying to deal with, but there are many reasons that we should consider working out solutions because it provides a lot of benefits to society. Alrighty, question number 25 is another one of these questions where it's going to set up for what we talk about later in the paragraph. So here we're talking about how wet plate photography is labor intensive and involves several intricate steps. So we can see that what goes on later in the paragraph is it says photographers usually first arrange or pose subjects. Then it talks about all of the other steps here. When the image appears in the negative, water is used. A chemical bath turns the negative image into a positive. The photo is then immersed. So we can see that after we would add in this sentence right here at the point where we see the 25, they continue then at that point, or rather start to list out the steps. So we need this sentence right here to indicate, hey, we're about to start listing out all of these labor-intensive steps. Otherwise, it's just like they randomly start listing them with absolutely no introduction or segue at all. So we definitely want to add this in order to make it clear that we're going to talk about the steps. So knock out C and D. A says yes because it serves as an effective transition by reiterating the main idea. Well, it's not reiterating anything. B, it sets up the paragraph's outline of the process. That's exactly what it is when we see all of these ordering words like first and then all of the steps that they lay out in that paragraph. Alrighty, and the last example of this is going to be question 26 from practice test 6. So at this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence. Several factors argue in favor of such an expanded role. So in the previous paragraph, they talk about basically how we have a crisis with medical college enrollments and expanding physician training programs. It's too slow and costly to address the near-term problem, so they're providing alternatives. And then they say one promising avenue or solution to the problem is to rely on physician assistants or PAs. And then if we were to start this paragraph with several factors argue in favor of such an expanded role, that would function as a really great transition sentence from the previous paragraph to this paragraph, because here it's talking about all of the reasons or the merits why that would be a reasonable or logical solution to the problem. They tell us PAs can perform many of those jobs, they can prescribe medications, they don't cost as much, so that could help with the healthcare system, managing the money. They have a shorter training period, so we can get people into the position faster. So we definitely need that there because we need to indicate to the reader like, hey, I'm about to start backing up my argument for why this would be a good idea. So we definitely want to add that. A says it introduces a counter argument. That's not a counter argument. In fact, that's setting up or supporting what we're saying. B says it frames the points the paragraph will examine, which is exactly what's going on. All right, so now we're going to be looking at two different questions, one of which we are going to want to keep or add what we're talking about, and the other example we are either going to delete or not add what we're talking about. So the reason why in these two cases we're focusing on what comes in the next sentence, you'll see why, is because when you use like a pronoun or like a reference word, like when you say the dog or like, I don't know, like these girls, that refers back to something that you've already mentioned. So it's really important that if you're going to refer back to something, you know what it is that you're referring back to and you clearly have that thing mentioned in the paragraph. So let's look at question number 3 here from practice test 5. So I can see that in the part right after the underlined portion, it says the plastic. So if you're going to say the plastic, again, that's really different from saying a piece of plastic because that just refers to anything. But when you say the plastic, that's referring back to plastic that you've already mentioned. So the first time and the only time rather, other than this spot, that plastic is initially mentioned is right here where it says squirting out thin layers of melted polymer plastic. So it's like if you were to delete this underlined portion, you would be left like, huh? The plastic? What is that plastic even referring back to? So we definitely need to keep it. So knock out C and D. And again, we're using basically the reference word in the next sentence to know that we as the person writing or editing the passage do have to keep it, to keep the reader in the loop. Choice A says we should keep it because it explains why x-rays are used. Well, nothing in this underlined part here mentions x-rays, so that's a no-go. So it's got to be B. It provides details to illustrate how a 3D printer works, which is exactly what's going on. I see it's talking about the 3D printer, how it moves, what it squirts out, all of that kind of stuff. All right, so now we're actually going to look at another example, also from practice test 5, completely ironically. And in this case, we're actually not going to add in the sentence that they're prompting us to consider adding in. So let me show you why in this case it wouldn't make sense. If you look right before where we see the one, it says create accurate models of prehistoric fossils, and then in the next sentence it says these models. So these models refers back to the accurate models that they had mentioned in the previous sentence. So it's like if we were to add this part right here into sentence 1, that would disrupt the flow because these models should immediately refer to the thing that was just mentioned in the previous sentence with no extraneous information disrupting that flow at all. So we definitely don't want to make that addition. So knock out A and B. Choice C says that it's not directly related. Choice D says that it undermines the main claim. So if you're ever in doubt for why you shouldn't add something, pick one of the following options: that it's irrelevant, loosely related, doesn't have to do with it, it's random, something of that nature. We tend to not pick undermines or even like as an answer choice, contradicts, because it's very unlikely that what they're adding is literally going to directly go against what they said. It's usually just that it's like random information that doesn't fit in. So we're going to go ahead and pick choice C here. And lastly, let's look at 3 examples where we are definitely not going to add the information simply because it's random. So as we mentioned, the most common reason that we're not going to add in information is because it's random or irrelevant to what the passage or that particular paragraph is talking about. So let's begin with practice test 1, question 28. So reading the surrounding context here, they're talking about co-working spaces, what they are used for, what they have inside of them, and that it's a melting pot of creativity. So we're talking about all the benefits and kind of the structure of a co-working space. So knowing that a co-working space costs $58,000 to launch, that's from the business perspective of it. So that has nothing to do with the benefits or the structure of how the actual facility is set up. So we definitely don't want to keep it. We want to delete it. So in terms of, is it repeating anything? They never specifically mention that number, so that's going to be a no. It's got to be choice C again. As we said, when we don't add it, it's going to be like blurs the focus, is random, irrelevant, loosely related, something along those lines. Same thing goes here for number 42. So we can see in the surrounding area, we're talking about basically all of the benefits of philosophy. Law and business benefit from the complicated theoretical issues. Philosophy can be also useful for engineering. It's transferable across multiple professions. It's good to have philosophy for any profession that you do. Fun fact, I actually majored in philosophy, so I'm a big fan of this passage, obviously. All right, so for number 42, this is talking about Greek philosopher Plato wrote his work in dialogues. That has nothing to do, like, yes, he's a philosopher, but that has literally nothing to do with the fact that we're talking about in a modern world. Like, look, it says because today's students, we're talking about these days. So this date doesn't quite fit in with the general gist of the paragraph because we're talking about modern times and how philosophy is useful to our modern corporate world. So we definitely don't want to add this, so knock out A and B. And again, it's going to be choice C, blurs the focus. It's not going to be D, undermines. It's not contradicting or going against anything. It just has simply no place in what this paragraph is talking about. All right, and lastly, let's check out practice test 7, number 10. So we're talking about NASA, and right here we're talking about developing global consciousness, and how with the world population topping 7 billion people, we need perspective. So we should support NASA and fulfill our responsibilities to the planet. So it's basically about what NASA can offer. We have an obligation to support them. So to start mentioning the locations of NASA's facilities has nothing to do with the significance of NASA, their mission, and our responsibility to the planet. So we definitely should not add that. So knock out A and B. Again, C is saying that it undermines the claim. It's not contradicting anything. It didn't say, oh, they don't have facilities in these areas, so it can't be that. So again, choice D, it's blurring the focus. It's just unrelated to the significance as to what NASA offers. So we're not going to go ahead and add that. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to click the subscribe button down below and also give this video a big thumbs up. And as well, leave any recommendations for videos in the comments below because like I said, this was a request from one of my subscribers. So I'd be happy to honor any other requests that I think would make for a good video if you drop that in the comments below. All of the links for our future crash courses, like the one this Thursday evening, and our SAT math book, I'll drop that in the description. And make sure to follow me on my test prep TikTok account. Test prep tips, we'll put that somewhere over here. Thanks again, guys. Have a great day.